In 2007, one Japanese guy killed a British girl in Japan. He continued a long fugitive life for 2 years and 7 months, which startled and scared Japanese people. Why did he kill her and how did he continue a fugitive life? Let's look at the case. This is the case of Tatsuya Ichihashi. In 2007, today's murderer, Tatsuya Ichihashi, was 28 years old. At the age of 28, he had never worked. He was given $1,500 each month by his father, who was a wealthy doctor. He spent idle life doing nothing in particular. But one day at midnight on March 20, 2007, Ichihashi saw a British girl, Lindsay Ann Hawker, near the station, and he was attracted to her. He approached her, saying, "Do you remember that I fixed your washing machine?" Of course, it was a lie he made immediately to get close to Lindsay. Lindsay responded to him like, "No, you must have the wrong person," and tried to go away. But Ichihashi was persistent. He told, "I want you to teach me English because I need it to learn art, and I would like to drink just a glass of water at your house because I ran and I'm thirsty." He somehow tried to hang on to her. Lindsay was such a nice person and she trusted Japanese people, so she allowed him to come to her house where she was living with her friends. Arriving at her house, Ichihashi had a glass of water and appointed an English lesson for several days later. On March 25th, 2007, they met up at the cafe for the English lesson. However, Ichihashi said, "I forgot the lesson fee," and asked Lindsay to come to his house so that he paid a lesson fee. Lindsay reluctantly agreed, and they went to Ichihashi's apartment by taxi. As they entered the room, Ichihashi suddenly hugged Lindsay. She was frightened and refused him. Then Ichihashi got outraged at her. He punched her on the face, tied her legs and arms with cables, and finally raped her. He carried her to the bathtub to confine her there, but Lindsay attempted to escape. She screamed so that neighbors noticed. Ichihashi was disturbed, panicked, and in the end, strangled her. Lindsay died. Soon later, he went to a DIY store to buy soils, deodorants, and a fermentation accelerator. As he came back, he put these stuffs and Lindsay's corpse together into a bathtub to hide the murder. The day after the murder, Ichihashi finished the task of hiding evidences that he had killed Lindsay. When he was about to leave the house, he saw a lot of police officers standing around his apartment. Well, Lindsay's friends called the police because they were worried that she didn't come back home, and her friends remembered that Lindsay had an English lesson with Ichihashi on that day. So police officers visited his place for questioning about Lindsay's disappearance. Ichihashi was disturbed but attempted somehow to escape from police officers. He was thinking, "How can I escape? How? He was thinking, and finally, "I will run!" When he was a high school student, he joined a track and field team and he ran first. And as a result, he succeeded in escaping from 6 police officers. Like that, his fugitive life had started. He continued running. While he was running, he noticed that he had slipped off shoes. So he stopped at a garbage can on the street, picked up some dumped shoes and a jacket. He continued running away. But as he changed just shoes and a jacket, he was found and captured by police officers once. But Ichihashi was good at karate, which is a martial art, so he was strong too. He shook off police officers and ran away again. On the way, he picked up a bicycle and rode the bicycle to Akihabara, Tokyo. Next, he stopped at the convenience store to buy a sewing set and went to the nearby hospital. He entered a toilet in the hospital, and surprisingly, he implemented a plastic surgery operation by himself with a sewing set which he bought at the convenience store. He thought his nose is the most characteristic among his face parts, so he changed his nose shape using strings and needles. He didn't use anesthesia, so it hurt so hard. but hunting was much better than being captured by police. Next, Ichihashi was trying to go out to other prefectures. That time, he only had $500, so he used transportation somehow without paying. He traveled to Saitama, Gunma, Shizuoka, Aomori prefectures, and finally arrived at Nishinari Ward, Osaka Prefecture. And in Nishinari, Osaka Prefecture, he finally decided to work. Also, he did the second self-plastic surgery. He cut his lower lip using normal scissors. At first, he was going to work there in Osaka, but he happened to see his wanted poster on the street and he was disturbed. He was discouraged from working. Then he thought of one thing. If I go to Ohenro, I might can revive Lindsay. Ohenro is a pilgrimage in Japan. It is famous with its 88 temple trek around the island of Shikoku, the smallest one among Japanese 4 main islands. Simply speaking, you walk a long way around 88 temples to pray something. There are various reasons embarking for Ohenro depending on person. Ichihashi's motivation was to revive Lindsay. He hoped that Lindsay would come back. Why did he think of such a stupid idea? Well, Ichihashi had read the Japanese horror novel Death Country before. The story of this novel is about mother who embarked for Ohenro to revive her dead daughter. Ichihashi was probably inspired by this story and decided to go to Ohenro. He continued Ohenro for 3 months, bearing fatigue and empty stomach. But 3 months after he started Ohenro, Ichihashi suddenly began to question to himself. What am I doing? Can I really revive Lindsay by accomplishing Ohenro? He finally noticed that it is no use doing Ohenro and he stopped it. And after that, for some reason, he went to the library. He began reading books about isolated islands to find the best place for settling in and avoiding surveillance. He decided to move to Oha Island, Okinawa Prefecture. Ichihashi went to Okinawa via Kagoshima Prefecture. In the mainland of Okinawa, he spent all the money on survival goods and embarked for the Oha Island. He could get to the island and began living there. He was always hiding around a rocky coast to avoid being found, but the isolated island was a very hard environment for people to live. He even couldn't manage to get water to drink. He became dehydrated and he almost died from hunger. He eventually gave up living there and decided to come back to the mainland of Japan, Honshu. He had no money, so he finally decided to work for the first time in his life. At that time, his wanted posters were put on walls everywhere around Japan. He was afraid of that people would notice him, so he performed the third self-plastic surgery again. He removed 2 moles on his face. Finishing the surgery, he went to a career center at Nishinari Ward, Osaka Prefecture. He found a job which he could live in too. Then he lied about all the profiles like his name, blood type, age, birthplace, and so on. By the way, Nishinari Ward is one of the few slums of Japan. A lot of people think Japan is a safe country, and yet that is true. But there are some exceptions, and Nishinari Ward is one of them and the most unsafe one. Let's go back to Ichihashi. It was so hard for him to work because he hadn't done even part-time job before. He was not used to working and he was often scolded by his boss. Anyway, he somehow could bear his first working experience and could save $8,000 in 3 months. But one day, his coworker told him that he watched the tabloid-style news featuring Ichihashi's case. Although the coworker talked about it just as a topic for daily conversation, Ichihashi was so surprised and got nervous. He quickly left the office bringing nothing, leaving his belongings there. He hurried to a manga cafe. Manga cafe is a simple resting place where you can enjoy reading manga and using a computer. There, using a computer of the manga cafe, he searched for a clinic of plastic surgery where you can get surgery without an ID. He found a clinic and hurried to there. He took an operation in which his nose was rendered higher and the wings of his nose was rendered smaller. The operation was completed. After the surgery, he didn't go back to Osaka. He stocked up a lot of food, spending the rest of all the money he had, and embarked for Oha Island again. His life at the isolated island started again. Not like the previous time, he was based in a concrete hut. Being so scared of wild animals and fear of being captured by police, he was somehow living there. Every time his saving food ran out, he went back to National Ward Osaka to work for several days to earn money for food. And every time he sensed that he might be found out in Osaka, he came back to Oha Island immediately. He continued leading a double life in Oha Island and National Ward Osaka for a while. 2.5 years have already passed after he began a fugitive life. But Lindsay's bereaved family still worked hard to find Ichihashi. Thanks to the family's effort, the public also didn't forget about this case even 2.5 years after murder. Or rather, as years went on, an investigation was becoming stronger and stronger. At that time, there were various rumors about Ichihashi, like, he is already dead. He often go to gay bars in Tokyo, but in fact, Ichihashi still worked at National Ward Osaka. One day, when Ichihashi came back to the dormitory from work, he saw some guys in black suits walking around the dormitory. He thought they were police officers, and he decided to do plastic surgery for the 5th time. He found one clinic in Nagoya where it was possible to take an operation at a special price, so he embarked for Nagoya. There he took 5th plastic surgery, which rendered his middle of the eyebrows higher. But the doctor, as well as most of the Japanese population, had watched the reports of Ichihashi's case and he knew about it. The doctor became suspicious of surgical scars on his face, which was actually the surgical scars of his self-plastic surgery of taking molds. The doctor secretly called the police, and he informed the police of the Ichihashi's next appointment date for removing the stitches at the clinic. And on the appointment date, the police officers were hiding and waiting for Ichihashi near the clinic. But Ichihashi didn't show up. Ichihashi guessed that the doctor would have called the police, and he didn't come back to the clinic. He removed the stitches by himself, and he continued a fugitive life. And he was becoming sure that nobody would find out him, because he had plastic surgery several times and he changed his face. He was becoming a bit more optimistic. But he soon got disappointed because he watched the news which introduced Ichihashi's new face to the entire Japan. The clinic where Ichihashi had his 5th surgery provided the information of his current face to the police. Also after that, reports about Ichihashi had been broadcast around Japan. His trace began to be revealed, like his fake names, belongings, places where he had been. As his information was being broadcast, Ichihashi began planning to escape to Oha Island again. He wanted to go there as soon as possible. However, he remembered that he had searched the internet for the info about Oha Island. He thought that police might know about his trace to Oha thanks to the browser history. But anyway, he couldn't give up going to Oha, and he went to the ferry terminal in Kobe. Unfortunately for Ichihashi, a ferry to Oha Island was cancelled on that day. He heard that the ferry from the terminal of Osaka would go to Oha Island that day, so he hurried to Osaka by taxi. But then, a worker of Kobe ferry terminal became suspicious of Ichihashi, because he was dressed lightly for someone who uses a ferry, and he was very similar to the appearance of the criminal who was always reported on TV. Then the worker informed Osaka ferry terminal about the strange guy, which was actually Ichihashi. At 3 p.m., Ichihashi arrived at the Osaka ferry terminal and entered a waiting room. Departure was supposed to be at 10 p.m., so he still had over 7 hours, but he didn't leave the waiting room. While Ichihashi was in the waiting room, some workers observed him and made sure that it was Ichihashi. A worker called the police, and soon police arrived at the ferry terminal. Police didn't capture him immediately. They waited until the good timing. In that evening, before departure, other passengers also came to the terminal. It was becoming crowded in the terminal. Some police officers in black suits approached Ichihashi and asked, "May I have your name?" Ichihashi just said, "Ichihashi Tatsuya desu. I'm Ichihashi Tatsuya," without resisting or escaping at that time. In this way, his long fugitive life ended. At the trial, he was sentenced to a life imprisonment. Now he is being imprisoned at the jail in Nagano Prefecture. 14 years have passed since this case. What is Ichihashi thinking about it? Only he knows. If you like this video, please hit the like button and please subscribe.